Welcome back to EtherLink AI Insights. I'm Alex, and today we're tackling something that's become impossible to ignore for European enterprises: AI governance and readiness in 2026. Sam, we're seeing this huge wave of AI adoption across Europe, but there's a real disconnect between how many companies are actually using AI and how many have solid governance frameworks in place.
Exactly, Alex. The numbers tell a clear story. 88% of European organizations have implemented AI systems, but only 42% have formal governance frameworks. That's a massive gap, and it's not just a compliance issue. It's a business risk issue that's going to catch up with unprepared enterprises.
So let's dig into that. When we talk about governance readiness, what are we really talking about? Is this just about ticking boxes for the EU AI Act? Or is there something bigger happening here?
It's much bigger. Yes, the EU AI Act is the regulatory driver. 76% of European enterprises cite compliance requirements as a key factor in their AI governance decisions. But governance isn't just about avoiding fines. It's about building sustainable, scalable AI operations. Companies that invest in governance early gain competitive advantages: faster deployment cycles, reduced risk, and stakeholder confidence that translates into customer trust.
That's a really important reframe. Let's talk about the EU AI Act itself. For listeners who haven't been following the regulatory landscape closely, how does it actually work? What are organizations supposed to do?
The EU AI Act uses a risk-based approach with 4 tiers: prohibited, high risk, limited risk, and minimal risk. High-risk applications are where the teeth are. Think recruitment AI, credit scoring, employee monitoring. For those systems, you need impact assessments, detailed documentation, human oversight protocols, and continuous monitoring. The framework forces organizations to be intentional about what they deploy and how.
So if you're using AI to screen job applications or assess creditworthiness, you can't just fire it up and hope for the best. You need to have your house in order.
Right. And here's the thing. Many organizations jumped into AI implementation without thinking through governance. So now they're scrambling to retrofit compliance into systems that weren't built with it in mind. That's expensive and messy.
Let's talk about how enterprises should actually structure this. What does a governance framework look like in practice? Where do you start?
You start with executive accountability. This isn't something you can delegate entirely to your data team or your compliance team. You need a chief AI officer, an AI governance committee, or embedded governance leads, someone with real authority who bridges technology, business, legal, and risk. That person owns strategy, resource allocation, and compliance oversight.
So this is a leadership problem as much as it's a technical problem.
Absolutely. And your governance structure needs to answer specific questions. Who approves new AI projects? Who owns different types of risk? Technical, regulatory, ethical, business. How do your data, legal, HR, and business teams collaborate? What triggers executive or board-level review? How do you budget for governance and audit? Without those answers, you don't have governance. You have chaos with good intentions.
Beyond structure, what about the actual policies and documentation? That sounds like a lot of bureaucracy, but I'm guessing there's a reason for it.
Documentation is critical, but it doesn't have to be bureaucratic. You need clear policies on AI project approval and risk classification. How do you determine if something is high risk or low risk? Data governance standards. What quality standards apply to your training data? Model validation and performance monitoring. How do you know your AI is actually working as intended? And transparency standards. If it's customer-facing, how do you explain its decisions?
When you say risk classification, give me a concrete example. How would a European retail company think about this?
Great question. Say you're a large retailer using AI for inventory forecasting. That's probably limited risk or minimal risk. But if you're using the same AI system to make hiring decisions or to flag employees for performance reviews, that's high risk. The risk tier determines what governance controls you need. High-risk systems demand impact assessments, human oversight, bias testing, and audit trails. Limited risk might need transparency disclosures. Minimal risk can be lighter touch.
So, the same technology, applied differently, creates different governance requirements.
Exactly. It's about impact, not just technology. And this is why executive alignment matters, because these decisions are business decisions, not just technical decisions.
Let's talk about the readiness assessment piece. How should an organization figure out where they actually stand? What does that look like?
Start by inventorying your AI systems. What are you actually using, where, and for what? Then assess each against the EU AI Act framework. What's the risk tier? Do you have the required documentation, testing, oversight? Are your teams trained? Do you have audit capabilities? From there, you can identify gaps and prioritize fixes. But this has to be honest. If you're missing critical governance pieces, you need to know so you can address them.
That sounds like it could be uncomfortable for some organizations.
It absolutely can be, but the alternative is discovering gaps when regulators come calling or when something goes wrong and you don't have documentation to show you acted responsibly. Readiness assessments are about surfacing problems while you still control the timeline.
Let's shift to the practical side. For a mid-sized European enterprise that's serious about getting this right, what should their first moves be?
First, secure executive sponsorship. You need budget, authority, and visibility at the board level. Second, establish your governance structure. Define roles, decision-making authority, and accountability. Third, conduct a readiness assessment to understand where you stand. Fourth, create your core policies and documentation templates. And fifth, build capability. Train your teams on governance, compliance, and responsible AI practices.
That sounds like a significant undertaking.
It is, but it's a one-time investment with lasting payoff. Organizations that build governance up front deploy faster, with less regulatory risk and more stakeholder confidence. It's not a cost center, it's an enabler.
What about organizations that already have AI systems deployed without this governance? Are they essentially starting from zero?
Not zero, but they're playing catch-up, which is harder. They need to retrofit governance into existing systems, which means auditing what's already live, understanding data lineage, testing for bias and drift, documenting decisions already made. It's doable, but it takes longer and costs more than building it in from the start.
So the moral of the story is, governance isn't optional, and sooner is better than later.
Absolutely. The EU AI Act is just the beginning. Other regions will follow with their own frameworks. Organizations that master governance now will lead in this space. Those that don't will face regulatory penalties, reputational damage, and operational disruption.
Sam, this has been really helpful. Before we wrap, what's the one thing you want listeners to walk away with?
AI governance is not a compliance checkbox. It's the foundation for sustainable, scalable, and trustworthy AI deployment. Treat it as strategic, not administrative. Invest in it early, and it becomes a competitive advantage.
Perfect. Thanks, Sam. Listeners, this is a deep topic, and we've really just scratched the surface. For the full strategic blueprint on AI governance, readiness assessments, and compliance frameworks, head over to etherlink.ai and find the complete article. You'll find templates, risk assessment frameworks, and detailed guidance for building your governance structure. Thanks for joining us on EtherLink AI Insights. We'll see you next time.